Thank you, everyone, for our seventh session together. I cannot believe time is flying. Uh, Today, we have a packed session. We are going to try to start right away with our breakout rooms. We're going to cover a fake case, but we're going to analyze the situation of its students. So in real life, what we should do is analyze each student. Here in the community group, in the community, college community where I work, we receive at the beginning of the semester the results of the standardized test to see where the students are in their reading, in their writing, and sometimes in their speaking. That's not uh, a standard thing that we receive the speaking, but the reading and the writing give us like a map to know where the students are. And you assess what is their strength. Are they better speaking than reading? The majority of the students are better reading because speaking, according to the research, is the last component that arrives when you are learning a second language. The first stage is called frustration. You do not understand and are not able to produce anything. The second stage is the social interaction where you can communicate with people like, oh, how was your weekend? Oh, great. Did you like the movie? Oh, yeah. So very minimal communication, social interaction. Then for the second stage to the third stage, that means a academic vocabulary and to be able to communicate at a higher level and communicate at a deeper level. Many students ask me, how long is it going to take? And I said, as long as you want. And it depends on how much they are, for example, watching movies in their own language so they don't understand the setting and the drama, etc. But then seeing it in English with subtitles in English. So they already know what happens in the movie, but then they get to listen to the pronunciation and see the spelling. So that's a very good way to encourage our students to improve their English skills. Another one would be listen to music in English. It doesn't matter what type of music you like, but that's a very catchy way to start learning and learning idioms and learning expressions that are used in this day and age in the United States. Another thing that I always recommend my students is to listen to podcasts. And I said, if you are considering studying a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, anything in the United States, the best way is to listen to podcasts. So choose any topic you like. It doesn't matter what topic, but that really helps you with your listening skills and your comprehension. And I said, if you are interested in really improve your academic language, read. And I said to my students, when you enter to the classroom, what I'm always doing, and they said reading, because there is no better way to acquire better academic language. And I said, instead of saying, let me, for example, I'm sad. Well, that's understandable. But if you want to improve your writing and your speaking through reading, you can improve. I'm disappointed. I'm discouraged. I'm heartbroken. So all those different ways to express yourself, you acquiring through reading. So those are the things that we need to know where the student is in order for us to know where to plug our student to improve their language. The purpose of today, as I said, we're going to finish our data for differentiation session that we weren't able to finish last session. But today we're going to talk about walking the walk. In the United States, we have an expression that says, if you talk the talk, you walk the walk. So ask, do what you said you're going to do. So that the purpose of this session is to walk the walk, right? Really analyze the lesson plan and do what we said we would do. If that's okay with you, thank you for those of you that are on time and that are present. Thank you, welcome. I am extremely excited. Let me share with you again the documents that, number one, I'm gonna share them in the chat. Hold there. So this is the document. Let me share. Hold there. Give me 1 second. And okay, I copy the link of this one. First of all, I'm gonna share with you a fake student case. And if you are so kind and you open the Google Docs that I just shared with you, you are going to see a fake student case. But what I'm interested is when we go to the breakout rooms, is that you are able to analyze it to know where the student is, what are the strengths, and then I'm sharing with you a rubric. Okay, and what is the goal? Let me share with you. Okay, the case study that we are going to analyze in our breakout rooms today, you have a fake student named Oksana. Her profile is she reads at a B1 level, but she writes at an A2 level writing. When you receive a student, that's the first information you have. And so the evidence that you can see, well, she has good comprehension in reading, but she has limited accuracy in writing. So my question for all of you today would be, before we split into rooms, how can we scaffold the writing and help her improve her writing skills without slowing the reading progress? So you as a professional, you are going to analyze her case. So you have here the information, and this is the evidence that you have observed in your classroom. That's why it's very important to constantly be monitoring your students, checking what they are doing, asking questions. So you are checking for understanding, you are analyzing their skills, you are checking their writing, and you are taking very quick notes every day. The evidence that you have understands main ideas in a level appropriate text. That's super important, that we give them readings that are challenging them, but they don't discourage them. If a person with a B1 level, you give them a way higher level, what they're gonna do, they're gonna disengage and they're not even going to try. So very important to look for websites. Here in the United States, we have free websites that the same article can transform it in different levels. I'm gonna try to find one and send you the link. So all the students are reading the same article, but at their level. Then another evidence is correctly answered comprehension questions, including those that are inferences. Uses context clues to determine vocabulary meaning. So when they have a word that they don't understand, they read the prior sentence, that sentence, the next sentence to try to infer the meaning of the word. And also a very powerful evidence is that this student can summarize short text using simple but accurate language. So that gives you the picture of a B1 performance. Then in the writing, So as you may notice, we have a gap between the reading and writing. In the writing, she writes short, simple sentences, maybe no adjectives, maybe very, very simple. Make frequent errors in verb tenses. Maybe she doesn't know how to use the past tense or the singular plural. Maybe doesn't know how to use the articles or the preposition. For, I don't know in Ukraine, but here in the United States, students struggle a lot. When do I use in? When do I use on? When do I use by? When do I use at? So a lot of need of practice in that arena. Limited use of varied sentence structure. So maybe she learned to use sentence stems and she's sticking with that safe pattern, and need guidance to organize ideas clearly. So that's the picture of your student Oksana. So in your teams, you're going to create a copy of this document or just type, you're going to find the strengths that this student have, the needs that the student have, and what instructional adjustment do you suggest to make this student continue growing in reading, but not leaving the writing to the side and continue progressing. What are you going to do? What I would suggest, use the rubric that I sent you. So here it is, in a score from 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest, you're going to say, well, in the context and task completions, you're going to talk about where do you think she is, what's the evidence that you have, and what is the next step. So read the prior page and come back to the rubric to write very quickly, and you have to arrive to a consensus. What is the organization and cohesion? What is the range of vocabulary that is limited? Grammar accuracy is good, but very limited. Mechanics, spelling, and punctuation, and that will give you an overall score. So base it on your notes here is what you're going to come up and write down here. So do I have any questions for this assignment? Please write it in the chat.
So I've got the suggestion.
Yes.
There are 9, 10 people here. Do we need to split into groups? Maybe we will discuss together.
If you prefer, okay, I want to hear everybody.
Just because, for example, as for me, I don't have the computer. I work with a telephone. It is better for me to talk a little bit and to discuss with others what to do. Let's do it right now and together. And let's listen to different ideas of different people.
Okay,
So
but
just
you know, my
suggestion.
concern is that when we meet all together, I have people that do not participate. And so I need everybody. If we agree we're going to do it together, it's because I want to hear everyone. So tell me in the chat if you're committing to participate, all of us together. And thank you, Natalia. Okay, thank you. I have one response. Thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you, Alexandra. Yay. Sophia, yay, thank you. Antonina, thank you. Okay, so that means we are ready to rock and roll. So the evidence that I have, I want to know what's your opinion, and you have to have both documents open at the same time. Let's analyze context task completion. Let's go. Very good. Understand main idea, answers, can summarize so short text using simple but accurate language. So that speaks volumes about the content and the task completion. So we have, if that's okay with you, analyzes here and tells me what's your opinion. You can tell me with your fingers in regards content and task completion. 5 means perfect, and once means almost nothing. So 2.5 will be proficient or surviving. So tell me.
So I have to say that if we speak about reading evidence, we may say that all the points here are her strengths. Yeah, she understands main ideas in level appropriate text. It is strength. Correctly answers comprehension questions, including inference. It is strength. Uses context clues to determine vocabulary meaning. It is strength. Can summarize short text using simple but accurate language. It is strength. But speaking about writing evidence, we've got some needs. Yeah.
Okay. Hold there.
The first one,
so,
right?
Okay. So the first one is, did she finish the tasks? Because there are students that they are so limited in their understanding that at their grade level, at their proficiency level, they cannot accomplish it. So here,
to my mind, she finishes her task. Yes.
Okay. So you will give her a 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe.
I would rather give a 4, because as it says that she writes short and simple sentences and needs guidance to organize ideas clearly.
Ding ding ding. Very good.
So that's definitely not the ideal, not the very best, but I still would give her 4 out of 5.
Yes, and you are
but
totally
it's
right.
not the problem in order to understand her. So yes, of course, she makes mistakes, but it's not. But it is not the problem. Yes, so we may understand her. Why not?
Okay, let's do something. Let's give her a 4.5 in regards content and task completion. And what do you think if later, when it says mechanics, spelling, punctuation, or range of vocabulary, we're going to analyze the next ones. And I totally agree that she is not performing at an independent level. She still needs somebody to guide her and help her in order to complete. Are we in agreement?
Yes, we agree. Why not?
Okay, and the rest? Hello. Thank you. Very good point. Valeria says yes. Thank you, Valeria. I appreciate your feedback. Okay, so we're going to give her a 4.5 in task completion. She tries. And what is the evidence that we have? We're going to put here understands, main idea. That's a big thing. Understands. What other evidence do we have? Did you notice in the oral part, she understands, she answers, she uses context clues, and can summarize. All this, she can do it at an oral level. So totally spot on. So understand main idea and orally accurate. So what would be the next steps? What suggestions do you have to improve? So the same thing, the same things that she is doing on the oral side, how can we do it for her to do it in the writing steps? What would be a good idea? And I'm gonna need everybody's brains to help me here.
May I suggest some?
Yes, please.
Okay, what if we provide, so the next step is provide sentence frames and guided prompts to encourage fuller responses.
Excellent. So we're gonna help her with sentence stems in order for her to be able to say the same thing in the oral area, but now pass it to the writing arena. Very good idea, Antonina. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other suggestions? Okay, we move on. I'm sorry.
I suggest so giving kind of like a sample, like product as we call it, yeah, because like in writing we differentiate between process and product approach. So if talking, so it could be like, so in case if we see that she definitely struggles with writing, why not give her some sample, maybe even with underlined lexical chunks or something, so that, for example, so she could be in the know that, aha, so like it works well. It's if it's underlined, then it means that I should pay attention to it. And why not use it in my own example, my own
writing?
Yeah, and so she will see. I believe that the idea with the sample maybe will work better for certain students, since if, for example, they struggle with writing, then perhaps just providing them just with the structures, isolated structures. So will not give them a hint of how to implement that in the context of their own sentences. For example, I've seen a number of examples when. Because I work not only as a university teacher, but I give some private tutorials, and whenever I suggest using some structures, I usually give them in the infinitival forms. For example, to be keen on something. I've noticed that certain pupils use them the way they are. So like when they are trying to use them in the sentences, but instead of saying so like she's keen or I'm keen, they say I to be keen, and I just need to correct them all the time by saying that, oh, no. So that's a good collocation, but you should adjust it to yourself. So you should change this infinitive so that it could be true about yourself. That's why. So in case if the sample is provided, I mean, by it I understand the whole text. Then so perhaps that would it would provide them with a clearer picture of how it works.
Excellent idea. Yes.
Oh.
I can barely hear. I'm old, so please say it again. Okay, so now let's move on to organization and cohesion. Let's try to see. So now we're going to move on to the writing, and I'm going to need your brains here. Write short, simple sentences. So here, what about a mini lesson in regards adjectives? So she can expand her sentences and make them more interesting. That's an idea. Make frequent errors in verb tense. So what Olina was just saying, articles and prepositions. So think about it. Now, limited use of varied sentence structures. So she is a stick. Maybe she had used sentence stems and she knows this is the easy pathway for me to do it. How can we expand the sentence structure? And I love the comment about need guidance. So that means she's still not doing it at the independent level. Maybe that is why she's still at a A2 writing level, because she is still not independent in that arena. So here is where I pick your brain and I need you to help me. In regard the organization and cohesion, what are we gonna give? What she knows, she is surviving, but I wanna expand it to come to the B1 level. So she's from an A2 and I wanted to take her to a B1. What am I gonna do to improve her writing? Here is where you speak.
So we have to train. So she has to be trained in using sentence structures. She has to be trained in making up more complicated sentences, and she has to be trained in learning learning verb tenses, articles, prepositions. So to train grammar, so to learn grammar a little bit.
Yes. So then what is the grade we're going to give her?
Maybe 3.
To read more, to learn grammar structures, yeah. Maybe to So to do some exercises in order to train verb tenses and articles and prepositions.
So a small mini, let's put mini lessons.
Yeah.
In regards the grammar component that she needs. But then what is my evidence, right? Is that she's not independent.
She's not an independent because of not knowing verb tenses, articles, and prepositions, and she doesn't know how to use different sentence structures, maybe.
Yes, and the bummer is that that's not that big of a thing. So for me, that tells me she is a high beginner because she is still not certain about the article that's like minimum, and she's still very confused about verb tenses. So here I'm gonna need Antonina, other people to help me. What can we do? What are the next steps to help her with the organization and cohesion?
Maybe we can provide examples, like examples of texts that we can analyze, and even while reading, we can analyze the structures that are used in this text. So then we can use it later in our own writing to implement it. Then maybe we can give some simple sentences and then later ask to paraphrase, maybe to combine them to use more complex sentences.
Alexandra, you nailed it. Did you notice what she said? We analyze in the reading, and then you bring those same sentences to the writing and you expand them. Amazing. That's exactly the best thing to do. We don't teach one skill in isolation. We bring them all together. You use the reading, you read those sentences, you bring them to your writing, you do mini lessons, and you expand them to make them alive. Excellent, Alexandra. Thank you so much. Okay, so now what is the grade we're going to give her? We know she is not functional in the organization and cohesion. So obviously it's not going to be a 4.5. So this is where you help me here.
It's either 3 or 3.5.
Okay, what do you tell me with your fingers? 3.5, 4, 5, 2. Okay.
3.
Okay, Valeria says 3. Okay, I agree. It's a 3. Very good. Now, range of vocabulary. Here is connected with no adjectives, small sentences. What is we're going to say here, no adjectives, struggle for verb con, right? So what would be the range if we read that her sentences are a short, simple, limited sentence structure, and I really like that we point out need guidance. So she's asking constantly for input, for help. She's not able to do it at an independent level. So what would be, do you analyze surviving?
In my opinion, as the level itself is pretty low, A2, so we can't expect much of it. But there is definitely a strength that can use context clues to determine vocabulary meaning. So, so maybe to if, to give a score, maybe a 3.5 minimum, not less.
Okay. So I like that you said, well, at her level, she is accomplishing the goal. She's kind of getting it done. But if we want to expand it, we want to help her grow in that arena. In your opinion, what would be the next steps? What can we do to bring those sentences from very limited, still needing support? How can we help that student to expand? Sophia, let me know.
I think peer editing is good thing here. They can work in pair, for example, with someone else, and they could like add some more adjective, some more vocabulary, so that they can like compare the first draft and like the last one.
Very good idea. But you know what, Sophia? We need to have a rubric and model for our students. How does peer editing look like? So love your idea. Definitely you nailed it. But there are 2 steps behind having a rubric and modeling how to do the per reading. So at the end, you should produce this. Excellent. Very good. Any other idea? Okay, so I'm sorry,
yeah.
But Valeria, go.
For example, to use keywords from the text and summarizing some paragraphs.
Very good.
So a student, for example, can write a few sentences summarizing the paragraph using the keywords.
Okay, keywords in the text. And are we going to give them those keywords? Like maybe you pronounce them in a higher voice, like give them a hint, or you're going to color code. What's your idea of giving them? I love the idea, by the way, but how do you envision doing that?
Just to give in bold.
Okay, so bold, and they know that's the meat of the story. Good idea. So you told me keywords and then summarizing.
Yeah.
Very good.
By writing a few sentences.
Excellent. Very, very good work. So in range of vocabulary, so you told me 3.5. Do you think she's at a 3.5 and understanding that she is at an A2 level? So the vocabulary at that level, she is accomplishing it, kind of, sort of. So 3.5, what do you think?
Maybe yes.
Okay.
And I just think, why not give her some discursive markers? So usually they are added for like B1, B2 level students, but why not suggest working, yeah, with some at least simple words and phrases that would provide vocabulary on the one hand and cohesion, better cohesion, yeah. So for example, like there are definitely the words that she might use for her to sound logical, yeah, and for all the ideas as well as paragraphs sound like as if the information from the previous paragraph is logically connected to like the information from paragraph 2 and 3 and so on.
I like it. Okay, so we decide 3.5 at her level. Is that okay? Okay, so let's move on. Now, grammar accuracy. Let's see how accurate she is. Short, simple sentences. It's not saying that they are perfect, but make frequent errors in verb tense, articles, and prepositions. So that's something, as Natalia said, she needs support in grammar and maybe mini lessons, practice. I use a lot of games online that they feel they are playing, but it's reinforcing the use and analyzing why. So they play the game and they go see the chart like why it's not accurate. So frequent practice to improve, limited use of varied sentence structure, and need guidance to organize the ideas. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. So grammar accuracy, that's a big point for her, and she is in tremendous need of support. So what do you think? One being awful, we know is not terrible, but five mean excellent. What is the grade that you're going to give to this student in the rubric?
As the errors are frequent, it can be like 2.5. Doesn't mean that she makes some
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5.
Are we in agreement, 2.5? Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you. So 2.5, 2.5. And then where do I see errors, frequent errors? What are the next steps? How are we going to help this student to improve? And I think this is the area that she really needs help. That gives me the idea. She's a good student. She's trying, but she needs still that support. So this is where I need your brains.
So first of all, we need to practice a lot, but after that, maybe we should teach her to identify her mistakes like by herself. Maybe we can give her some examples of wrong sentences, like with grammar mistakes, so she can identify them and pay attention to them in the future.
Okay, excellent, Alexandra. I can see you're a good teacher. Okay, who else? What else can I do? Valeria.
To provide grammar drills, so to practice some structures.
Practice. Right. I mean, sentence structure.
So to my mind, I insist on doing grammar exercises, more and more grammar exercises, train and train. So it works. Yeah.
Yes, but remember that it has to be in context. It has to be real life. We cannot give the student papers and papers and papers to fill out that they feel like void and going nowhere. So we have to give them like, okay, imagine that you're going to the doctor's office, or imagine you're applying for a job. So a real life setting that the student feels I need to accomplish this writing or this dialogue, a real life scenario, but with a lot of grammar practice, identifying the mistakes. So give the student the chance, like, okay, why did you choose this verb? Why did you choose singular? I always said a, for example, a means one, and then you told me pills. So singular, plural. And I just let them analyze. I don't give them the answer. So things like that for the student to analyze. And last one, the mechanics, the spelling, and the punctuation. Needs guidance to organize clear ideas. What's the other thing? Mechanics, spelling, and punctuation. Simple sentences. So it doesn't tell us a lot about the spelling, but if it's missing like articles and prepositions, that doesn't mean they are misspelled, means it's the wrong one. So what are we going to give in spelling and punctuation?
It hasn't been mentioned here. Maybe 3.5.
Okay. And the rest, tell me in the chat or tell me with your hand. Thank you. Valeria says 3.5. Okay, 3.5. So we don't have really an evidence that in regards spelling and in regards punctuation. So something that we do here in the United States at first grade level is that we are always constantly telling if it's a declarative sentence, it ends in period. So we're forcing them to remember it's not a sentence if it doesn't have the right punctuation. If it's a question, it's a question mark, etc. So I think that the student is doing a decent job, maybe punctuation at level, and we just continue reinforcing punctuation. Very good. So then what we would do in real life is that we would add the scores, and that will help us to determine what to do next. So the strengths of the students, we would return to a rubric. What are the needs? Well, she needs mini lessons, mini grammar lessons. The strengths, she is performing at level, but needs to connect reading. Like I like what Valeria says, connecting no, Alexandra, I'm sorry, connecting reading with writing. Right? And the instructional adjustments this is the part where now we have the data, and how am I going to do it in a group of, let's say you have 20 students. How am I going to help each student to accomplish their needs? So this is where it's so important to know our students in order for us to group them according to their needs and provide that help. The last session that we're going to do together is called CAFE. And it is a system that we use here in the United States. CAFE starts for comprehension, accuracy, let me see what else, fluency, and expand vocabulary. So it is a station-based strategy. And that way we have our students in groups, and we can provide that extra support to our students. It needs a lot of modeling, a lot of reflecting from you, but I am the witness that it works excellent, and it really helped their students to work on their the areas that they need support. So thank you so much for participating in this fake excitement. But instead of teaching writing on a separate block after reading, we use writing as a response to reading. And we bring, as Oksana, Alexandra said, we use them together, and we bring some of those skills into the class. For example, students can write short reflections, summaries, or reflections to reinforce their comprehension. For example, the main idea is because, and you can use it as an exit ticket. Start with micro writing. I give the students a paper every week, and it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and every day I ask them a short prompt. When they are done, they put it on the right side of the desk. That means I'm ready to be checked, and they start reading, or they start doing other tasks. And I give each one of them 1 minute of my attention. Oh, thank you. Oh, look at this verb. A small connection, and that will improve the student's writing. And slowly progressing towards more structured tasks. We are building the momentum. Give the feedback in that moment. When the students give you the paper and you give it back 2 weeks later, they don't remember what it is about. So give the feedback in that moment, and that will help them build their writing. We are building, again, the momentum. In that moment, you give the feedback. Give them vocabulary. Oh, I like this word, but what about this word? What do you think? Would it work better? Just sometimes one sentence reflection, and that will be a game changer. Let me see what's the next slide. Hold it. I am very good. So we identify the strengths, the needs, the adjustment to make, and that's what we do on our students. Obviously, not on daily basis, but we have to make constant checks in and make quickly notes. For example, all this, Oksana, is notes that you make. I have, as I said, one notebook beside my desk, and I'm always writing what I see, what I notice. And that becomes a very powerful tool when you're like, why this student is stuck in this? You're analyzing, and your reflections, it's your formative data to help the students to grow. So now let me show you, this is the data that I collected when I was working at a high school level. I had 40 English as a second language students. So I didn't give you the names of the students, but I collected every year what they had in the speaking and the overall scores. Why the speaking? Because that is the hardest area to grow. So you can say, well, this student in 2018 had a 3.3. Why it went back to 2.7? Well, they increased the test was harder. So that's why many of the students had kind of a regression, if you see the numbers, but because the test was harder, the state test. So I keep track of all the data, and then I'm like, okay, this is what the student needs. And this is the overall. So 3.5 in reading, writing, speaking, comprehension. And again, the test was harder, but then they start growing. And so this data tells me what they need. And a few lessons ago, a few sessions, Olina asked me, where do you keep this data? So you don't collect data every day. This is the yearly state test. So I know where the students start the school year. And I realize, oh, this is what they need. And this is what the state gives us as a standard. So the listening skill, the speaking skills at that student grade level should be at a 2.8. So I analyze what is the requirement of the state, and then I realize, okay, this is what the student need. And you can do it every month. You can do it here we divide the school year in 4 chunks. So maybe at the beginning of each chunk, I said, this is my goal at the end of the school year, and this is where my students are. I have 3 chances to arrive to the state test. And the stress is very hard because I am being evaluated depending on how many students reach the yearly goal. And so data becomes your best friend to know where the student is and where they need to do. I have expectations where the student needs to be in every single area. And that's why making small groups becomes extremely important. So I know I'm going down. So the differentiation framework. We talk about data. Now let's talk about how am I going to accomplish that? So the differentiation covers 4 areas. The content, what am I going to teach? How am I going to teach it? I use a lot of body motions. If now I think that by now you know me, I move a lot. My hands, I point out things, I make faces, I dance, I do whatever I need to do in order for the students to understand what I'm saying. When I arrive home, my husband is like, you don't need to move your hands so much. You're not teaching anymore, but you get used to that. So the 4 things that you can do to differentiate is how you provide the information, the content. Then the second one is the process. How are you're going to engage your students? You can use, as here is in the picture, games, videos, competitions in the classrooms. You do a lot of different ways for the students to engage with that content. The third one will be the product. How is the student going to show you that they know? And it doesn't have to be a test all the time. They can do a dialogue. They can perform the story that you're reading with body motions. They can vote. They can do a lot of ways to show you, I got it. I know what you're talking about. And the fourth one, differentiation, is the language support. Remember, we were talking about Oksana and that she still needed support. Well, you do the scaffolding. Okay, first I'm going to show them a video, then they're going to do this game, then we're going to talk about it, then they're going to write a summary. That's where the reflection needs to happen in order for the students to be able to understand. The research says that now in this day and age, the majority of us receive all the visuals and we store the information behind a picture, behind a video. So it's very important to provide your students with visuals so they connect it with the content. And as Antonina was saying, how important it is to provide the sentence stems in order for them to be able to express their opinions. No, I'm going the other way. So the data connection, the data with the differentiation, you can do it at 3 different levels. One is the whole group. When I see many students are not understanding that concept, I stop my class and I do a mini lesson. This is what an adjective is. And I I draw myself, adjectives modified a person, a place, a thing, blah, blah, blah. And I give a few examples. When you realize it's just a small group, I said, everybody continue with the activity, so, and so, eyes on me. And I start giving that differentiation. Or you create an individual learning pathway to support that student. So that's why it's so important to know our students, to be able to adjust a whole group, a small group, or an individual in order for them to reach the content. Now, examples of a differentiation in your lesson plan. You can tier the speaking task to the whole class. Class, describe a picture. So I'm giving them the prompt with a picture, and that can be your tiny little writing assignment of the day. I see, or the sky shows. Each student is going to give you a description according to their own proficiency level. Another way would be to retell a story using connections, maybe with prepositions. If they're struggling, you can give them that support. Just use the connections. Or debate a simple opinion. I think that chocolate ice cream is better than strawberry because A, B, C, and D. or the other option. So those are very simple ways to try to support our students in the differentiation. Examples of a differentiation plan. I use a lot this tiny little chart with my students, and if you like it, I can send you a copy of it to retell a story. So once the students, I read it to them, I ask them, tell me if there are any words that you don't understand in order for them to understand the whole story. Now I pair them up with a classmate and I said, you tell me what happens at the beginning, setting and characters. What happens in the middle? What is the problem, the climax of the story? And what happens at the end? What's the solution of the problem? That's the very basic summarizing. So I give them this idea first, next, finally, or at the beginning, then at the end, and that will connect with the writing immediately. So that's an idea. Each student is going to develop their sentences at their proficiency level, but that's a very visual way for them to know this is the expectation, this is what I need to do. Any questions so far? Do I have anybody in the chat that needs to stop me for questions? Okay, Valeria says no with her head, thank you. So I continue. Examples of a differentiation plan. Depending on the area is where you're going to make the examples. For low proficiency learners, in the content, I use a lot of visuals. In the process, I use a lot of repetition. I write it on the board so I can go back and point out. I do guided modeling and product. Just give me short oral responses, or with the sentence stems, give me the answer. Language support, something we didn't mention in the next steps that is very good. Give word banks depending on the if we're talking about health or if we're talking about food. So I give a word bank, and for my very low proficiency, I give pictures so that they can connect and be able to communicate and sentence stems. For my mid proficiency learners, in the content, guided readers, sentence frames, in the process, paired tasks, so they help each other. And I always, as I said, peanut butter jelly, they don't know that the peanut butter today is the higher and the jelly is the one that needs to learn from each other. Guided questions, so I know exactly what I want them to learn. The product, give me a paragraph summarized. And language support, collaborative editing, like it was suggested here. And for my high proficiency learners, in the content, authentic articles, something that is relevant, that is connected to real life experiences, open-ended prompts so they are able to write more. In the process, independent inquiry. And I want to know not just the facts, but I want them to analyze it and infer in their process. In the product, extended writings, or maybe they do a presentation. I even do with low proficiency presentations, very simple things. And language support, peer feedback using rubrics. So maybe you already know all this, but that's where in our lesson plans, we have to tweak it and group them into this type of differentiations in the responses. So as I said, Olina asked, how do you keep track of all of it? Well, as I show you, I keep all my data in Google Forms or Google Sheets for my formative data. Here in the United States, last class, Talia Tierra mentioned Class Dojo. I suggest that you take a look at that. The students track positive behavior instead of taking points when the students are misbehaving, they give points when they are doing something positive, and they said, thank you so-and-so for waiting your turn. Thank you so-and-so for giving such an accurate answer. And they have special sound. The students use what animal they choose, and the parents can be connected in your class. For those of you teaching at a kindergarten or lower elementary level, but it is a way to connect with parents instead of using your own personal phone number. So you collect data, you connect with parents, you can track positive behavior. That would be an excellent way. And another way is you track reflections via Padlet that we have done here. That's several ways that I came up with for tracking formative assessment in order for me to know where the students are. And what about the pitfalls? Well, you can over collect data, but you're like, I don't even know how to use it. Why am I? So don't overwork yourself. Take quick notes, and at the end of the 9 weeks or however you divide the school year, analyze where each student is, and then you tweak your lesson plans to arrive to that. So you can be biased in the interpretation. For example, here at the community college where I teach, you have the option to grade the assignments without seeing the student's name. And that helps you not to be biased in your grading. And that is something very important. Oh, so-and-so always copy, so-and-so it's always late, or is always misbehaving in class. No, you analyze their work independent of their behavior. Here in the United States, we cannot give grades for behavior anymore. You just assess the student's work. So that's a challenge. And you misalign between data and objectives. So the data that I'm taking, it has to inform how am I going to teach. It's not just random numbers. Very good. So the reflections, what type of data are you using right now? What small changes could improve my data use? And how can I share my findings with my students? If you send an email to the students, well, I noticed you're blah, 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 that's going to produce zero change. So when do you inform your students what have you noticed? So write in the chat one or all the answers for these questions. What data are you already using to know where your students are? What changes can you do to inform and improve your data? And how do you share the strong areas of your students and the areas in need of improvement to your students? How is your conversation with them at a professional level? How do you communicate with your students those areas so that they are responsible to improve it? It's not just your job, you're helping them to do the job. I'm waiting for your answers in the chat. Okay. And be brutally honest. Don't think that the first year I start teaching, I knew all this. This is after 30 years of hitting the wall and why this is not working. So what I'm trying to do is to pass on what I already suffered so you don't hit the same rock. Okay, Olina, thank you. I rely on the analysis of data related to marks and their age. That's something very important. It doesn't look the same in elementary than high school. I prefer immediate feedback. Excellent, Natalia. I analyze the students' answers and give them recommendations. Very good. Sophia, how they participate, their behavior, summative results such as tests. Very good. Alexandra, I use tests, creative assignments, just constantly ask students to explain the material. That's very good. When you ask them, explain me why you answer this, that's super high order thinking skills. Rules so they can show they understand the information. Super wise answer. Very, very good. So the feedback of their work, if it's 2 weeks later, doesn't produce any good. So it has to be immediate feedback. And it doesn't have to be long, but, oh, I noticed you're doing this excellent. You nailed it. But explain me this. And what do you think we can improve it? I collect data, Valeria, about tests, attendance, students' preparation in Excel tables. Very, very good. So you are doing what you're supposed to do. Very good. So now, what small changes can you do to improve your data usage? So you're collecting the information. Now, how can you improve your data usage? And again, it doesn't have to be something every day. It's impossible. But again, it's not just preparing the lesson plan and delivering it. Is how are they responding? How are they reaching the objective? Okay, I have to move on. Very good. Where am I? So data aren't just numbers. They are stories of the students' growth, the students' effort. So we see data not just as numbers, but there's a person behind that data, a person that is trying, that is struggling, that is not understanding. So we don't see just the numbers, we see how can I help this person? My next question would be, what kind of data do you need to start collecting in order to help your students? Very good. So Natalia, it depends on student level of English. Very good. I prepare different exercises according to their needs. Excellent. Very, very good. So that's all I have in regards data for differentiation. But now, if that's okay with you, I'm going to start sharing for a second. And I know I throw a lot on you today. You are so kind that I hope you love me anyway. But what are your takes on in regards data for differentiation? Is it something that you're still scared? Is it something that is helpful for you?
Helpful, definitely.
Okay, what everybody thinks.
It's helpful for us, yeah.
If we rely just on descriptive analysis, by the way, for example, when they say that something is good or something is bad, they do not understand the scale of how something good is, to what extent it's good. Or like if we say that something is not that bad, or kind of you might have worked better or something, yeah. kind of like that doesn't give them much, but if they see, or whenever they see the data, for example, when it comes to the mark, for example, they are always in the know, because it's just a kind of flag marker for them that so indicates what their progress is, and like, or how they are progressing in general. Because, for example, whenever they see the marks, for example, if we're talking about this kind of data, the marks or the points they get, so in case if the particular student kept on getting, let it be like 7, and now like the mark has so is higher, and now it's like 9 or even 10 or times 11, so it means that there was marked improvement in their work. And so
yes,
without even any other comments, they can compare their own progress. Or, for
yes,
example, on having this data in their hands, they usually like peep into each other's works and just,
yes, yes, yes,
and that's what they do. Yeah, that's essential to them. And so, yeah, the teachers' feedback should definitely rely on so both a descriptive analysis, like when you give comments, yeah, as to like what has already been done, how it has improved, what else can be done, because you definitely need to give some constructive criticism, so, and show the
yes,
areas for improvement. But so the data also like means a lot, as like relying on that, they, without even the teacher's judgment, so can be in the know, like whether they succeeded or whether they failed, and like where to move.
yes. But I like what Sophia said. Data is helpful because we can see the students' progress. But the important thing here is that the students see their own progress. So when I see a student that has been having, I don't know, 40 on the assignment, and all of a sudden they have 60, maybe they're still not passing, but there are 20 points difference. So I ask them, I love that you're progressing. Explain me, what did you do different to improve 20 points? So I make them reflect of what they analyze. Oh, I'm adding more adjectives, or I was working very hard and remembering this story is in past tense. So I was analyzing the verbs in past tense, or that they put themselves analyzing and reflecting, what did I do better to have a better grade, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, I have a hair on my mouth. Very good. So if that's okay with you, we're going to wrap up differentiation. And now we're going to move on to the topic that we have for this week, that is lesson planning. And as you can see, it's super connected with what we're doing. You know, we are recording. So the objective for today is we're going to analyze the importance of lesson planning in the field that we work. We connect the lesson plan components with the standards and the outcomes expected. We organize the lesson effectively to have students engagement, and that the students and ourselves reflect on it. We integrate always the 4 areas of learning a language, and we differentiate for mixed proficiency levels. So my first question for today's real presentation would be, which of these areas do you find most challenging right now? In your lesson planning, in your daily teaching, what of these areas that you see here on the screen you find more challenging? I'm waiting for your answers in the chat. And it is okay, we're among friends. If you say all of them, that's fine.
So the last one, to differentiate for mixed proficiency.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Natalia, for being so honest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for the rest. Thank you for those of you with a camera on and for participating, Sophia and Alexandra. Thank you for participating as well. And the ones that I don't mention your name, I don't know how to read Ukrainian, so I don't know how to mention your name. Very good. I have to move on because time is money. Very good. So the next one, the power of a good plan. Well, the good planning and good lesson plan provides structure. This is what's going to happen, and direction. This is where I'm going. Aligns teaching with learning goals and with the standards. It builds my confidence as a teacher and the class flow. This is what we're doing. This is the material. This is the screen, my PowerPoint, whatever. Enhance student engagement and achievement because there's not one single minute that I don't know what's going to happen in my classroom. So think of a class that went really well. What was the reason that it worked? So I have to reflect on that and tap on that specific area. I know that this works, so I'm going to continue doing that. The next, every lesson plan should include these components. Obviously, objective and standard. This is where I'm going. A warm-up, a way to lead and engage your students into the topic. It can be you dressed in a costume, a video, a voting poll. It has to have an input. I'm going to give the students, by listening to my chat or reading an article, some way to introduce the topic. Guided practice. Here in the United States, we are very big. I show them how to do the sentence, how the prepositions or the articles work. Then we do together, then you do alone. The production, what are they going to do? What is your expectation? Are they going to give you an oral speaking answer? Are they going to write? Are they going to do a presentation? I need to have very clear, but obviously that this depends on where you are in Bloom's taxonomy in your topic. Is this the first time I'm going to talk about this topic? Or am I very close to the end of the unit where the students are showing me proficiency on their own? So the type of product depends on where you are in the lesson or on the unit. Then how am I going to assess that? How am I going to give them my feedback? And something super important that will change your lessons. Give them thinking time and time to reflect. Like, explain me, how did you come up with that drawing? Or explain me, why did you come up with that answer? Make them reflect. This is called metacognition, thinking in their own thinking. And obviously the differentiation is going to help them succeed and move on in their proficiency level. So thinking in the components of the lesson you recently taught. If you jump from this, open your book in page, blah, 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 fill out this paper. I know without being there that your lesson is going to be very mediocre because you're missing different steps. Again, the students need to know the objective and understand it, not just you reading the objective, but they analyzing what they're going to do and why. Covering the standards expectations. Here in the United States, each grade level has a lot of standards that we have to cover. So are they going to touch on that standard one time in the school year? Is this the first time they are learning about that? And here in the United States, it's called scope and sequence. For example, in first grade level, they know what's a sentence. In second grade, they expand in that arena. By fourth grade, they need to master what's a sentence. And after 4th grade, you know, they already know what's a sentence. I'm not going to explain it again, but you need to know throughout all elementary and middle school and high school, what do they have to learn in each grade level? When is the first time they see it, when they are reinforcing it, and when they should master it. So that's something very important that as a teacher, I suggest that you take the time to know scope and sequence, what they need to know in each grade level, and when they are exposed for the first time, and at what grade level they need to master it. That helps me a lot to know, no, that's not true. You already know what this is. So I'm just going to help you refresh your memory. Very good. So now this is the real meat that I want to cover today. We have two types of lesson objectives on the screen. The first one that I always love to use, and you can Google it, the Samara Lessons Objective. That's a whole school. This guy is like a genius working in New York. The learning objectives are the foundation for your lesson. They state what the students should be able to do by the end of the class or by the end of the unit, ensuring the content and the language objectives. Remember what Ms. Malui said a few weeks ago. You have to have the content, but also the language objectives, and supported by activities, engaging the students 90 or 100% of the time of the class, providing ample practice for language and content, and offering appropriate pacing. Don't rush the class. If it's too fast or too slow, that's going to cause behavioral problems, and they can dismotivate students at different proficiency levels. So I want you to notice the difference between the Samara lesson objective and the I can statements. In the United States, the students are taught of the I can statements. I can tell. Well, in the Bloom's taxonomy, you can see that I can tell it's the very lowest level I can remember. But telling doesn't mean understanding. There are two worlds in between telling and understanding. So your lesson plan and the verbs, the action verbs that you tell me in your lesson plan, if I go and observe your lesson, I know if you're at the beginning of the unit where they are just learning the facts and understanding, or you are near the test when the students can invent, can design, can construct something beautiful out of what they learn. But this takes maybe weeks. Arriving to the test doesn't mean the students know. You are planning different lessons and growing little by little to arrive to they being able to operate on an individual basis. So the difference in these two types of lesson objectives, we will, and here is where you are going to decide what action verb you're going to use. The students, we will understand. So I know you're at the beginning of the unit. The students will analyze the character, the main character, and then through what activity? Through a role play, through writing a story, through a game in the class. So you are going to decide how are they going to prove you they are doing this action, and then you are going to decide what is the mastery. Maybe this is the first time. Let's say we will analyze the adjectives function in a sentence through games, and we're going to show pictures, and the students have to provide you with adjectives. What is your mastery? Maybe 80% because it's the first time they see it. maybe 95. Don't shoot for 100 because you can be very challenged. But here you have action verbs and a variety of activities that they can show you. But the students need to know what they are doing, not you, them. In comparison with the I can statements, I can tell how the beginning introduces the story and the ending conclude the stations. Can anybody tell me orally or in the chat, what are the big differences that you see between this lesson objective and the I can statement? I cannot wait to hear you.
So the difference is I and we. So we have to concentrate on we, not on I, maybe, yeah?
Very good. Beautiful difference. Anyone else? Orally or in the chat? It seems that I'm promoting the Samara lesson objective. They don't give me money, I promise you. Yes, go ahead.
This Samara lesson objective is, in my opinion, more like more meets the SMART requirements. So it's more tends to be more measurable and
ding ding ding
focuses on numbers.
Excellent.
More measurable
yes
things.
You nailed it exactly. In the Samara lesson plan, it's measurable. You are telling the students, this is the level that you need to perform today in order to reach the goal. So taking the time in the class to explain the lesson objective, what are we doing and how are we doing it, you are done, almost, right? So explaining the lesson objective to the students, don't skip that part. You're missing big time if you're just like, open your book in page blah, blah, blah. Why? Where are we going? What for? Lesson objective, big time. Thank you. Amazing answer. Very good. So now for time constraints that I'm taking you way longer than I should, we're going to see a small video in regards the objective. Sorry. Okay, very good.
Can you share the sound, please?
Oh, Lucia, unfortunately, we don't hear anything.
Oh, hold there. Let me share. Share computer sound. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go again.
All teachers are language teachers. And what we mean by this is that all teachers have the responsibility to teach not only their content, but the language that accompanies it. For example, if I'm teaching my students about character traits, I need to make sure that they have a large repertoire of adjectives. They also need to be proficient at using personal pronouns. Or let's say I'm teaching a cycle in science, photosynthesis or mitosis. I need to intentionally spotlight sequential language, like first, next, then, initially, subsequently, and ultimately. As teachers, we're used to sharing content objective with our students that identify what they're learning. But we also need to be good about creating language objectives, because language objectives identify the nuances of the language students need to know in order to show that they've mastered the content. When teachers plan and write a strong content objective and language objective, they need to ask themselves 3 important questions about the language objective. First, what language domain are my students practicing? Reading, writing, listening, speaking? Second, What is the essential vocabulary that my students need in order to communicate mastery? And third, what sentence structures will my students need to know so that they're able to communicate their ideas clearly? Asking these questions in advance provides clarity during the lesson and enables the teacher to share with the students at the onset of the lesson these important tools that they'll be practicing. Let's look at an example. In this video, a 4th grade teacher is working on a math unit about fractions. She begins her lesson by sharing her content objective with her students.
All right, graders, we're going to continue talking about fractions today. Yesterday, we reviewed how fractions are part of a whole. Today, our objective is going to be part of a set. Let's all read together our objectives, our math targets for today. We can interpret fractions as a part of a set. And we can explain the parts of a fraction. Excellent.
Next, the teacher spotlights the essential vocabulary words, like fraction, numerator, denominator, part, and whole.
All right, let's review our vocabulary that we talked about yesterday. So we're ready to talk and write like mathematicians today. Remember that a fraction is part of a whole, or today we're going to think about it as part of a set. When you have multiple objects and you're only looking at a few of them, or part of the bigger set. Let's remind ourselves what denominator is. Let's stand up so we can use our bodies to help us remember. The denominator, the D stands for down, so denominator is the bottom number of a fraction, representing the whole, or total in the set. And the numerator is the top number in a fraction, representing the part. That's what we have that U.
She is using body motions, she is using visuals, she is highlighting the vocabulary that she needs to do. Spending time to explain the objective, it's a big, big part of a lesson. Now, organizing the lesson, it's super important. It has a logical sequence. I give them the input, we practice, and then they produce something. And we have to balance the time of teacher talk and student action. A lesson is not me talking 100% of the time. It is listening to the students, students practicing, students engaging in peer-to-peer, etc. Include thinking time after I talk to them and tell them what we're going to do, and let them reflect. After group work, they need to share. Remember, a few weeks ago, one of our presenters said, one of the strategies to improve the students in their proficiency level, they pair share. It's super important. You're not wasting class time. You are allowing the students to reflect, to analyze the sentence structure, share. That will help with behavior for many reasons. This is very important. But also, you need to reflect in your lesson. Build in teacher time reflection, and think where in the lesson I can include 30-second thinking pause for my students to reflect on what we are learning. Thinking time equals learning time. So the cognitive waiting time allows your students to process the information and to go to deeper thinking. Research shows that it improves participation and accuracy. Use prompts like, you know what, let's take 15 seconds to think before you answer. And I count them with my fingers so they know, don't even raise your hand, let's wait. That way, the ones that are always answering calm down, and the slow ones or shy or timid, you give them the chance to also participate. So write one idea silently, and then you share it. So that's also based on research. Differentiation for diverse proficiency levels. You adapt the task, not the objective. As I shared before, there are different ways. If you don't remember, see the video again or see the PowerPoint. Use tiered activities, maybe sentence frames for the beginners, maybe write a summary for the higher achievers. Offer choices. And I'm going to send you the link of this article, How to Engage Students by Provide More Freedom of Choice. You can do this, or that to do today's objective. That's very, very powerful. You use flexible grouping. That means today, if we're going to write, I know these are my high writers, so I'm going to make them the leader of my group. So you make the grouping according to what you're doing. It's not a set in stone grouping. Then you scaffold the vocabulary first, then next, so they know how to provide a better response. My question is how to differentiate speaking task for beginners and advanced learners. That is, again, you give them like prompts, give them sentence stems for the beginners so they are able to participate. Teaching language as a whole. Again, don't isolate. Today we're just going to do writing, or today we're just going to do reading. Use constantly the 4 areas to help each other to progress. Skills support each other. So authentic communication happens using multiple areas simultaneously. So replicate that in your class. You can use task-based learning that integrate skills around real tasks. You can use content-based instruction using meaningful context. Like I said, pretending this is a workspace topic, workplace, or going on a trip, or going to the doctor. Integrate performance assessment. Task lead from input to output. I said, now you say. Recycling the vocabulary. You learn these words, bring them back. Don't use them just one time. Keep on using them so the students remember. So which skill do you find the hardest to integrate, and why? That will be a question. And I know I'm taking a lot of time, so I'm not going to wait for answers. So the micro lesson example will be, this is my level, the objective, describe the process at work using sequencing. For example, you show them a video. I'm going to say, for example, preparing a coffee. You show them a video, you doing it and orally explaining. You prepare the hot water, putting it in the blah, blah, blah. So you show them this is the sequencing and how to do something. And the input, read a story description, listen to a short audio, and then they are able to do it. Here I have a video of one of my students.
How to make a pencil. Well, let's start with the lid. That is this. With the lid, they use a powder that has graphite and clay. That is all mixed. They will then put water and then mix it. When they're done mixing, they will use a machine that is pressing for the lids. They will put it there, and then when the machine is done pressing, the lids will be drying in the machine. When they're done with that,
okay. So I don't have time to show you more, but what I want you to do is that they research first, summarize it, and then they did a video recording themselves saying the process. And you can use it for any content you need to know.
Later.
Very good. So then describing a workplace, as I showed you, I did a guided practice so they understand the steps, the production, the students explain a process after research, writing, listening, reading, and then they have to speak. And then the assessment is peer feedback based on a checklist. Did they introduce the topic? Did they follow steps? Did they connect their blah, blah, blah? And you give them thinking time, 15 seconds pause after each prompt. That's a very simple example of a lesson plan. And then you need to reflect what worked well. Oh, I guess that I give them thinking time. What I need to adjust. Did the outcome match my objective? Yes, so a good professional practice for your lesson plan to be effective is that you reflect and that next time I'm going to add this. I'm going to take out this. That didn't add up anything. So I don't have a chance to give you this reflective time, but I hope that this very short presentation helps you to understand how important it is to think in your lesson objective, explain it to the students, and then you give them the input, you do together with them, and then they perform based on the objective. If you don't have anything else, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being with us during this long presentation. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paulina, the floor is yours.
So thank you, first of all, on behalf of all of us, for such an informative, as usual, webinar. So we got to know a lot of new things, as well as we kind of like recollected what we've already known about, And so my takeaway of this webinar is that perhaps I would pay more attention to the way I use data. Because sometimes we do collect data, but not in all the cases we like use them properly. Or we plan the work accordingly.
Well, thank you so much to each one of you. I wish you a beautiful week. Next session, we're going to talk about project-based learning. And guess what? I am going to have an amazing guest speaker. Here in the United States, the person that leads a whole school district is called superintendent. So I pulled some favors that somebody owes me, and you're going to have a superintendent of a whole school district. It's a dear friend. He was my supervisor several years ago, and he is absolutely amazing. So be on time next week. Be ready with questions about how the school system works in the United States for teachers, for evaluation, whatever you want to ask. Be on time, be here. Is going to be absolutely fabulous. We're going to talk about project-based learning and how to differentiate for different levels of proficiency. Have a wonderful week. Again, it's my privilege to be with you every week. I cannot wait for next week. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lucia.
Thank
Bye.
you. See you next week.